Life balance is not about doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time.
You know how it is on that Friday before you go on a 1 week vacation?
Yeah, you're like, I am getting this done, I'm out of here.
Oh my gosh, you are so incredibly productive.
Yeah.
What if you could do that every day?
Yeah.
It only happens when you have constraints.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Christy Wright Show. Today, we are talking about valuing your resources. This is gonna be good. And then I get to sit down with my good friend and bestselling author, Michael Hyatt, who, by the way, is brilliant when it comes to managing resources like your time and your calendar and productivity. And we're gonna talk about what you need to do to get it together. All right, let's go ahead and dive into what this means. Now, if you're tracking with me, we are working through the core of confidence, which is your source of truth, your source of confidence in your life. If you remember, we started with your spirit, then we talked about protecting your mind, then we talked about appreciating your body, and last week we talked about honoring your relationships. So we're working on our life from the inside out. Spirit, mind, body, relationships, and now let's talk about resources. Let's talk about what it means to value your resources, like your time, like your money, like your energy. Now, here's what I've noticed. There is a major difference in my life between when I value something and when I don't. And believe it or not, it doesn't have to do with the monetary value. Let me give you an example. I have some cheap sunglasses that I've gotten for 10, 15 bucks. And you know what happens to those sunglasses? They get thrown in the bottom of my purse. They get stepped on in my car. They get lost. They get scratched up. My kids break them. Inevitably, they get broken. Now, the cost wasn't that much, but it was more about how I actually valued them, how I actually treated those things that led to that result. Now, I also have a really nice, really fancy, really expensive pair of sunglasses that my husband got me for my 30th birthday. And you know what? I treasure those things. I treasure those things, not just because they were expensive, but because they were a gift from my husband. And so I treat them differently. You see this in lots of different things in your life. I have cheap jewelry that I lose and break and, don't take care of. And then I have my wedding ring that you better believe I never take off because I don't want to lose it. What's interesting is the value of the item didn't necessarily determine how I treated it. It's how much I valued it. You can have a $1 million mansion that someone trashes because they don't value it. And you could have a piece of paper that someone treasures because it is a letter from their late grandmother. The actual item didn't determine the outcome. The cost didn't determine the outcome. The price didn't determine the outcome. It's how much you or I value these things. And you know what I've noticed? In our lives, often our resources, our most finite resources like our time and our money and our energy are the things we value the least. We treat them like they're limitless, but they're not. They're limited, they're finite. Let me give you a specific example. So last year, I was on the phone doing research calls. I loved getting on the phone with customers and clients and fans and friends and just trying to understand what they're going through, what you're going through. What are your struggles? What are your pain points? What are your motivations? What are your goals? What are you working toward? And how can I help you get from where you are to where you want to be? It's a lot easier to create content and teaching and lessons for you when I understand you and I get to ask you questions and actually hear from you what you're going through. Well, there was one conversation I had with a woman, and y'all, the conversation was great and it was so helpful. I took tons of notes, but there was one specific moment that stuck out to me that I thought was just so weird. Okay, so I was asking her about how she spent her time. I was asking her about how she spent her money and just kind of understanding how she used her resources. And she began to tell me a story about a time that she was so proud of. Okay, let me tell you what happened during this time. She needed a doorknob for her house. Apparently the doorknob had broken and she needed a new doorknob. Now, Just for context here, the doorknob she needed was not a fancy doorknob. It was not a super expensive doorknob. It was just a basic interior doorknob that cost about $8 at your local hardware store. Okay, I know because I have bought doorknobs at the local hardware store many times for our house. But she tells me, yeah, I decided I didn't want to go buy it. I was going to teach my kids a lesson about how you can do things yourself and you can save money when you figure out how to do it yourself. So what I did was I figured out how to get the materials to make a doorknob. I watched YouTube videos on how doorknobs are made. I figured out all the wiring, the engineering, the connection, all of that. And I want you to know, after about a week, I had made a doorknob for, wait for it, $4.13. She was so proud. So proud that she saved $3 and some change on a doorknob for her house. And I wanted to be proud with her. I wanted to be proud of her. And yes, I'm glad you saved that $3, but I couldn't help but do the mental math of the time she spent that led to that $3 savings. All that said to me is that she didn't value her time. She was making pennies per hour on this project. Now, if you just want to make a doorknob because you want to learn a new skill, if you just want to make a new doorknob because you love a good challenge, I'm with you. I love a good challenge. If you just want to make a doorknob because, I don't know, you want to make things hard on yourself just for fun to see if you can do it, sure, I'm with you. I got it. But if you're making a doorknob to save $3 when it's costing hours of your life, I have to question how much you value your time. How much do you value this one set amount of 24 hours in a day that we all get? Have you ever thought about that? Time is the great equalizer. No one can get a minute more regardless of how much money you have, how much power you have, how much fame you have. Doesn't matter. We all get the exact same 24 hours in a day. So how we use our time becomes a major factor in our ability to be successful, in our ability to reach our goals, in our ability to create this life that we actually want to live. Because you know what? Your life is made up of those hours. Your life is made up of your calendar. Your life is made up of time. So when we look at how we create confidence, how we step into the person and the plan that God has for us, we have to look at valuing our resources, our time, the most finite resource we have, our money, and even our energy. Because God calls us to be good stewards of these things. And when we're not, no wonder we're stressed. No wonder we're frustrated. No wonder we're resentful and anxious and exhausted because we're spending our life, our time, our money, our energy, and resources on things we don't care about, things that aren't important. We say, this is important over here. We spend our time over here. This is important to me, but I'm going to spend my money over here. This is the most important priority, but I'm going to give this all my energy. No wonder you're frustrated. There's a disconnect in your life between what you care about and what your life actually reflects. So if you want to build confidence in yourself and confidence in your life, a big piece of that is valuing your resources. That means that you place importance on that thing. I'm going to be very careful about what I say yes to and what I say no to. I'm going to be very careful about the commitments I put on my calendar. I'm going to be very careful about how I spend my precious, limited, finite resource of time. You know, I talk about life balance all the time, and there's a lot of myths around life balance, and there's a lot of confusion around life balance. It feels like this elusive thing that we can never really nail down. We feel like, oh, do I have to have this perfect split with all these things in my life? And you don't. You don't. Life balance isn't about doing everything for an equal amount of time. I think it's about doing the right things at the right time. I think it's about living from your values. I think it's about spending your one life on what you actually care about, on what's actually most important to you, not your neighbor, not your sister, not your friend, not that influencer on social media, spending your one life on what's important to you. What an amazing opportunity we have that God entrusts us with these resources. But if we just try to fix the time problem, if we just try to fix the to-do list, if we just try to fix the calendar, we're going to miss the mark because life change happens from the inside out. But as you seek God first and start with your spirit and ask him what he wants you to focus on, and then you work on your protecting your mind and getting rid of those limiting beliefs, those toxic thoughts, those narratives that are just simply not true. And then you work on appreciating your body and who you are and everything that means. And then you let that confidence in who you are, spirit, mind, and body, pour into your relationships as you honor those relationships, as you treat others as you would want to be treated. Watch how that work you're doing pours into how you manage your time, how you value your resources of your time, your money, and your energy as you bring your best self to these areas of your life. As you come from a place of strength and confidence, not a place of resentment and running ragged and rushed and trying to please people. You're coming from a completely different place when you show up for people and you show up in places in your life. But it didn't happen by accident. It happened with intentionality because you worked on yourself from the inside out. I think you'll find as you do this, I think you'll find as you actually value your resources, you will look up over time. As this gets easier and you strengthen that muscle, you will look up over time and you realize you not only actually like yourself, you like the life that you're living. You're stepping into the person God has created you to be, and you're stepping into the plan that he has for you. And that would be the goal that any of us have. To lean in and find confidence in who you are and find confidence in the God that created you. What a gift and opportunity that we have. So as you work on yourself, start with your spirit, protect your mind, appreciate your body, honor your relationships, and lastly, value your resources. All right, y'all, I'm so excited. I get to sit down with someone that I have respected and admired and followed for a really long time, bestselling author Michael Hyatt. Michael, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, Christy.
This is so fun. So you and I were just talking even off camera. Like, I've followed you for a long time. We've been in the same circles. You've been a friend of Dave's and our company. But one of the things that you are known for, at least in my mind, is time management and productivity. And you have so many resources on this. You have so much teaching on this. I want to know, let's just start by talking about why does this seem like this is such a pain point for people? Like, that's something that you constantly see come up.
Well, part of it is think of the cultural environment.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so distracted, so many interruptions, so many things vying for our attention. And I literally believe that our attention span has been so shortened because of social media, because of the internet.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to stay focused on anything. And yet, focus is the secret power of true achievers. To stay with something until you finish it and be able to achieve it is critical, but it's challenging.
Okay, let me ask you this. On that note, do you find there are any patterns or themes when it comes to how men or women experience time management and distractions, or even personality styles? Do you see? Because I relate to that. I'm like, I get distracted so easy.
Yeah, definitely. I think personality styles. I think some people are more focused kind of by nature. I don't know if it's a gender thing, but I definitely, whether it's the Enneagram or just the Colby system or any of those kind of personality profiles, there's some certain things that determine how you manage your time and how you focus. Okay.
So for you, I know you've been talking about this for a long time. Why is this something that you specifically wanted to teach on and help people with? You have so many resources. Why is this something you wanted to I want to lead in this area?
Well, one of the things that was driving me crazy is I saw a bunch of celebrity entrepreneurs promoting what I call the hustle fallacy.
Okay.
Which is basically you're going to work 78 to 80 hours a week, whatever it takes, in order to, stake your claim, become successful.
Do more.
Exactly. As a result, people were burning out their health, destroying their marriages, burning up their relationships with their kids, not having any life at all. Yeah. And so I became an advocate of what I call the double win, which is to win at work and succeed at life. Is it possible to do both? I say absolutely, but you got to figure out how to achieve more by doing less. And that's why I wrote my book, Free to Focus. It's all about achieving more by doing less. All the productivity research says that the more you work, there's a law of diminishing returns. That you probably got about 6 hours of profitable work in you a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the other 2 hours can be, email, Slack, kind of getting some of that maintenance stuff, the low value work. Yeah. But you still don't have that much time that you can be productive. So how can you get that double win? That's what drives me. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
It's so interesting too, even how you talked about, is it possible to win at home and win at work? And I think that question in and of itself helps us really dig into our limiting beliefs, because I think
Yes.
I work
Okay.
with a lot of women, and I think a lot of them have this narrative that I'm always failing. So which one am I? It's not if I'm failing. I'm always failing at
Right.
one or the other. So which one am I failing at? And so I love this idea of like, well, let's challenge that premise and say you can
Yes.
succeed at both. That actually is possible. But I think that time management's kind of this, or even life balance, it's this elusive idea that we're always chasing and never seem to capture. So talk us through like, this may be a silly question, but how do you define success? How do you define success in time management specifically? How do you feel like, I feel like I'm doing great with how I'm balancing my life, managing my time?
That is a brilliant question.
Oh, thanks.
Because it's not about getting more things done.
Right.
It's about getting the right things done. So this is where I think we have to embrace the power of constraints. So let me just tell you a quick story.
Okay.
So back in the year 2001, I had taken responsibility for one of Thomas Nelson Publishers' lowest performing divisions. In fact, it was the worst performing division in the entire company.
Okay.
14 out of 14.
Okay.
Lowest revenue growth, lowest profit margin, everything else. So the CEO said, how long will it take you to turn this division around? I said, pick a number out of the air, 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, as it turned out, it only took me 18 months.
Wow.
So we worked hard, but we were working all the time, 70, 80 hours a week. I didn't have a life. My health had kind of gone to pot. My marriage was okay. But at the end of that 18 months, I got the biggest bonus check I'd ever gotten in my entire career. It's more than my annual salary. So I go home to share it with my wife, Gail. She's usually my biggest cheerleader, and I just expected her to be elated.
Oh, yeah.
But she was kind of a little less than her enthusiastic self. And I showed her the check, and she said, that's awesome. She said, we need to talk. And I said, uh-oh. I just could kind of feel that this is one of those momentous occasions. We walked into the den and sat down, and she said, I appreciate everything you do for our family, but I got to tell you, she said, you're never here. And your 5 little girls need you. And she said, even when you are here, you're not really present.
Yeah.
And she said, I feel like a single mom. And she started crying at that point, and I teared up, and I knew she was right. I thought I'd reached the pinnacle of success, but it was a false summit. And I said to myself, I can't keep doing this. But I don't want to give up my career for my family.
Yeah.
That's kind of putting the ambition brake on.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't want to sacrifice my own ambition and my desire to build a business on the altar, of my family's success, my own well-being.
Right.
So that really sent me on this 20-year quest to find out, is it possible to win at work and succeed at life? And I think it is. My life is not perfect, but today in my business has been on the Inc. 5,000 list for the last 3 years in a row. We just won the Inc. Best Places to Work.
Yeah,
but at the same time, last year I took 162 days off. I've got a great relationship with all my kids. And again, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But this is possible.
Yeah.
This is possible. And I don't think people ought to give up this desire for balance in this futile pursuit to have more and to build, this crazy life that requires you to sacrifice everything.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary.
I love what you're talking about too, because I think a lot of us believe we do have to choose. Like, it would be very easy for you in that situation to be like, well, I'll just quit the business. The pendulum would swing so far to the other extreme. Like, well, I just have to abandon this dream. And I think it's so easy to focus always on where we're not. I've talked to people before about my guilt often came from always focusing on where I'm not. So if I'm here with you, I'm like, oh, are my kids okay? I don't know.
Right.
If I'm at home, it's like, oh, I didn't catch up on emails. We're always, well, if you live your whole life looking through the rearview mirror, of course you feel guilty. But,
totally.
It's funny, Dave Ramsey, opinionated guy, he has a lot of thoughts about things. He hates the term balance, life balance. He hates it. And so I love a good challenge, and I love to teach on this topic. So we just go back and forth all the time. And I said, well, here's how I would define it, Dave. He's like, balance doesn't exist. I'm like, no, life balance is not about doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. And so it's what you're saying with focus. It's in this season, I'm going to be focused on this thing. And this season, I'm going to be focused on this thing. And it's going to ebb and flow.
There's seasons.
Yeah, it's going to ebb and flow, but it gives you permission to be present where you are. And that's really powerful.
That's hugely powerful. But I think this is where we've got to embrace the power of constraints. Because back in the day when I was having that conversation with Gail, what happened before is I would be working through the day and I'd think, if I don't get this done, then tonight after dinner, I'll crack open my laptop and I'll finish it. Or if I don't get it done by Friday, then I'll do it on this weekend. And I'll
there were no boundaries.
No boundaries.
Right.
And so an executive coach I had, right after I had that encounter with Gail, I thought, I need some help. So an executive coach I hired said this to me. He said, I want you to figure out a time you're going to stop at the end of the day, and I want you to commit to not working on the weekends. Now, I want you to notice what happened.
Okay.
When I had that constraint, it forced me to make better decisions in the day.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm not just going to be piddling around.
You're more efficient.
I'm more efficient. I'm focused. You know how it is on that Friday before you go on a 1-week vacation?
Yeah. You're like, I am getting this done. I'm out of here.
Oh my gosh, you are so incredibly productive.
Yeah.
What if you could do that every day?
Yeah.
It only happens when you have constraints.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing is when you have those constraints, then you're free to be fully present with the people you love when you're not at work.
Yeah.
So I have these 4 rules that I apply so that when I'm not at work, when I'm on offstage time, I'm not going to think about work. I'm not going to read about work. I'm not going to talk about work. And I'm not going to do work.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people say to me, but my work's my hobby. No, I'm sorry. At least in my rules, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
I'm a much more interesting person at work if I've got other interests outside of work.
You have a life.
That's right, if I have a life. And nothing will blow out your work like a health failure, like having a marriage fail, or having some issue with your kids that requires your full attention.
Yeah.
So it's better to incrementally invest. I know Dave believes in this.
Yeah.
Incrementally invest in all those areas as you go along,
right,
so that you don't have a big blow up or a breakdown.
Yeah, and the medical research in terms of stress, burnout, especially with entrepreneurs, I've been reading about that lately, the numbers don't lie. So we may think we're invincible. A lot of entrepreneurs think that, but the numbers and the stress don't lie. Okay, I've got a question for you. So one of the things I think a lot of people struggle with, especially the audience I work with a lot of women, they're balancing this mom guilt, they've got dreams, side businesses, a career. But here's the weird paradox we live in. So we want to be wise with our time. We want to, have boundaries, have systems, all of that to be efficient and productive. And then as believers, I work with a lot of faith-based, audiences.
Yeah, me too.
You feel this pull of I feel like I'm compelled as a believer, almost to the point of being a doormat. So it's this paradox of how do I help people and give generously of my time, of my money, of my talents, of my energy, and protect myself to where I'm not getting burned out? And what does that look like? Because that's hard.
Yeah, I think, coming to terms with the fact that I'm not God.
That's a hard one.
That's a hard one.
There is a God, it's not me. Wait a minute. I thought I was here to save the world.
Yeah, so I don't have unlimited resources.
Yeah.
Time, energy, attention, those are all resources that I have to manage. And that's why I think that self-care is a leadership discipline. If you don't take good care of yourself, then you're not available to other people, not available spiritually, not available emotionally, not available physically sometimes. Yeah. So for me, the best way to practice that kind of self-care thing is to have a morning ritual that's very methodical. And I talk about that in Free to Focus. I have it in my Full Focus Planner system. But to have a ritual in the morning that I observe every morning that sets me up for game day.
Yeah.
So that I can win the game today.
Yeah.
So it's going to look different for everybody, and it's going to look different in seasons of life. Like I'm an empty nester. By the way, once you get here, it's awesome.
Am I ever going to make it? I don't know.
You're going to make it. It's going to be incredible. But the thing about being an empty nester is I have a lot of time. So I'm able to have like a 3-hour morning ritual. Yeah. But my daughter Megan has 5 kids, and she's lucky if she gets in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's
if you
okay.
get up before the kids, it's just a
exactly.
miracle.
That's a win.
Yeah.
So different seasons of life, and that's okay. But the important thing is that you have a ritual. Now, the truth is, everybody has one. Some people are intentional about it. Some people just kind of drift into it. Yeah. But the secret to succeeding in life is design it, not drift it. Design, not drift.
I love that. And I will speak as a person that my whole life I've said, I'm a night owl. I'm not a morning person. I get my best work done at night. I still like to stay up late once in a while, but it's amazing how powerful it is when you set your day where you are in control of it versus being reactive. Because Michael, when I wake up to my kids, I need milk, I need this, he hit me. It's like I'm immediately feeling reactive. I'm waking up as mom, but if I wake up before them, and it is such a gift if I do, even if it's 10 minutes, I'm waking up as me. Okay, how do I want to spend my day? How do I want, it's just amazing the difference of how you start can affect your whole day.
Totally. And I think what women have to see in particular is that that's a gift that they're giving to their family.
Yes.
So it feels like selfish. And I feel like women struggle with this more. And as the father of 5 daughters, I see this in my own grown girls. But they struggle with self-care because they feel like it's selfish. It's honestly that's the least selfish thing you can do. Yeah. Because then you're available to help other people. Yeah. And you're never available or never emotionally available when you're tired. Yeah. And that's why I think the first and foremost self-care discipline has to be rest.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's not about getting up a certain time for time management. It's about going to bed at a certain time. That's easier to manage than getting up at a certain time, especially with small kids. Yeah. Right? But what time you get to bed, That's in your control.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh my gosh, I could ask you questions about this all day. Okay, so you mentioned your planner. Go ahead and tell us about where they can find that and what all kind of is included in it, because that's a tool you use to help people do exactly what we're talking about.
I do. So the planner is called the Full Focus Planner. People can find out about it at fullfocusplanner.com. And it's all about two things, about goal achievement and about productivity. So it encapsulates what I teach in my book, Your Best Year Ever, that's goal achievement.
Yeah.
And then Free to Focus, that's about productivity.
Yeah.
But I would say the one big idea that has been revolutionary for me and for my clients is to identify every day what I call your daily big three.
Okay.
So the average person has 15 to-do items on their task list.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to pull out your...
On a small day, I'm sure. Yeah.
And so if that's true, and if, the principle that 20% of the effort drives 80% of the results is true, right? The Pareto principle, then 20% of your to-do list probably drives 80% of the results. So 15, 20%, 3. So what are the 3 items that are going to drive the biggest and best results?
Okay.
And here's what this allows you to do. So the average person gets up in the morning, they look at their to-do list, they're overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure.
They're defeated before they start.
That's right.
They go to bed at night, even if they've accomplished half of them, they feel defeated. There's got to be a way to reinvent the game. So what we said was, wait, what are the 3 biggest high leverage tasks that you can do to find the win in advance? And if you get these 3 done, you're going to declare victory and go to sleep feeling proud.
Yeah.
And so the planner incorporates that entire system. In fact, we talk about 3 quarterly goals, 3 weekly outcomes, and your daily big 3 tasks. We call that the 3x3 achievement system, and that's all baked into the planner.
Yeah, it's such a comprehensive productivity system. I know a ton of leaders use it, and it's been integrated, like you said, from what you teach. It's kind of the tool that helps you do that. Now you have a new book, The Vision-Driven Leader. Tell us about this too. Tell us a little bit of overview. I know we talked about time management, but I want to know what's all in this.
Well, I felt like in working in organizations now for almost 40 years, that the missing ingredient is vision. People are all big on vision. They're big on core values. They might even be big on strategy. But vision is wanting. It's not taught in universities. There are very few books written about it. The average person has never been mentored on this. Yeah. And yet vision is the single most important thing in success. Dr. Stephen Covey talked about this in 7 Habits, where he said, visualize the end, get the end in mind. And that's what a vision is for your organization. But it's not a motto. It's not a slogan. It's not something brief that you can put on a coffee mug or a t-shirt. I define what I call a vision script. So just to describe it quickly, a vision script is a written document 3 to 5 pages in length. Okay. It's going to outline a clear, inspiring, practical, attractive picture of your organization's future. Its reality as you see it 3 to 5 years from now. And here's the cool part. It's written in the present tense as though it's already happened.
Wow, I love that.
Now, when you have
just
this...
speaking it into being.
That's right.
That's right.
And have it robust and clear. This becomes a document for your organization so that you know what it looks like when it's finished.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of like if I was going to build an addition to my house, which I just did recently. If I just went to Home Depot and bought a bunch of materials and came home and started building without a plan. And yet that's how most people approach their business and frankly their life. So the vision-driven leader is talking about being driven by the vision and starting there.
I love that. I know you do a lot of work with EntreLeadership, and I just spoke with them last week. I spoke to our internal department, and I talked about that. I said, you have a vision for your organization. Do you have a vision for your life? Like, you need this for your life. And I know that can be vulnerable. Like you said, it's hard because you're like, I don't know, what if I don't get it? I don't want to get my hopes up. Don't want to be disappointed. But gosh, if you don't envision it, you're never going to get there. So I love that you're walking people through that.
You got to see it first.
Michael, I could talk to you about this all day. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I know you help people in such a practical way. You have so many practical tips. So thank you for being here. Thanks for teaching us. And before we go, would you tell people where they can connect with you on social media about everything you're doing?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, michaelhyatt.com. You can find links to my podcast, my coaching program, all my products, books, etc.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Christy.
All right, y'all, I want to share a scripture with you that I have used many times before in teaching, but it's so perfect for what we're talking about when it comes to valuing your resources. Now, we've been talking about time and money and energy, but I want to share with you this story, this parable from Matthew 25. It's the parable of the talents. Now, you've heard it before, but just sit here with me, and I want you to try to hear it with new ears, especially in light of what we're talking about when it comes to stewarding what God has given us. All right, this is verse 14. It says, "Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathering where you had not scattered seed. So I was afraid being a key word here, and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. And he goes on to talk about weeping and gnashing of teeth. It doesn't go so well for the guy that had the 1 talent, okay? But here's what's so interesting about this verse. I think so often we have something in our life, whether it's time, it's money, it's energy, and we have just a little bit and it never feels like enough, right? We never have enough money. We never have enough time. We never have enough energy. Certainly if you have little kids, you never have enough energy. We never have enough, but we're always focused on our lack. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. But what's so interesting is we sit here focusing on our lack, our deficit of time or money or energy, and we ask God to give us more. God, give us more. Now, there may be situations and circumstances where you just need God to show up and provide, and that is real, and God can do that. I believe that, and I have seen it in my life and other people's life. At the same time, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to be faithful with what we've been given, to be wise stewards of the money we do have, to be wise stewards of the time we do have, to be wise stewards of what we put our energy and effort and talents into. Because I know for a fact that if we are not faithful with what we've been given, God is not going to give us more to mismanage. If we're wasting time now, God's not going to give us more time to waste. If we're wasting our money now, God's not going to give us more to waste, to mismanage. Let me just give you some interesting stats and facts here when it comes to time. Do you know that the average American watches between 2 and 5 hours of TV per day? We spend hours on social media. The average American checks their phone 100 times a day. I would say that it's not a lack of time that's our problem, it's a priority problem. It's not putting our time and effort and energy into what matters the most. Would you or I actually sit here and say, yeah, social media is the most important thing in my life? Likes, comments, shares, it's it. That's all I care about. No, you don't think that. You don't care about the cat memes or the political memes. That's not the most important thing to you. You just mindlessly scroll like we all do when you're waiting in line or checked out on your couch or just because you're tired. We're binge watching things on Netflix, and those things are not bad. But to spend our time on these things that are not important and then complain to God that we don't have enough time doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're sitting there and not being wise with the resources that He's given us, and we're just asking for Him to give us more. We have such an opportunity to be wise and faithful with what we've been given, to spend our resources and steward our resources on what matters the most to us, on what God is asking of us. And in doing that, in our faithfulness in those things, that is where I believe God will bless us abundantly. He can trust us with more when we have been faithful with what He has already given us. It's just like the master says to the servant. He says, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. And then the result is come and share in your master's happiness. Let's party. Let's celebrate. This is good news. How you've handled this has been good. So let's just talk practically and tactically of what that could look like. A system and plan for your time is your calendar. It's your schedule. A system and plan for your money is a budget. That's a really simple way to manage these resources that you have. But of course, there's always an opportunity for God to show up and disrupt your plans like only God can, and He will. And I think you can have a system for your money and where you spend it and where you give, and your time for where you spend it and where you give and what you put your energy. And then there will still be moments where God shows up and go, hey, I really want you to leave a tip to this server and bless them. Hey, I want you to cancel that meeting and focus on this person in front of you. And when the Holy Spirit prompts you, that trumps any system or plan or budget or schedule that you have. But it's both. It's not all God and it's not all us. We're going to work like it all depends on us and pray like it all depends on God. We're going to need a system and a schedule and a budget and a plan, and we're going to need to be willing to respond when the Holy Spirit leads us. I think it's in both of those that we can be faithful, wise, and generous stewards of the resources that we have. So I want to ask you some journal questions. I want you to write down your answer to these like we always do. And I want you to think about what this means in your life, spiritually, but also practically. The first question is this: which do you tend to do more? Do you tend to be overly generous, maybe even wasteful with your resources, where you just kind of spend it without thinking? Or do you tend to hold your resources like this, with closed fist? This scarcity mindset of, I don't have enough, so I've got to hoard it and hold it, and I can't give it anywhere. I can't spend money or give or show up because I've got to hold on to everything. Which do you tend to do more? Be careless, or maybe be a little too cautious? Write down your answer. The second question is building on the first. Where do you sense God is trying to help you grow when it comes to your resources? Where have you seen themes or patterns where God is asking you to step outside your comfort zone, to grow beyond your nature of what you naturally normally do? And there's good sides to each of those extremes. Where is God asking you to grow and trust Him with your resources? Write down your answer. And now third, and this is lastly, I want you to write down a prayer. I know this is a little different than how we normally do it, but I want you to write down a prayer asking God to show you how He wants you to spend your resources. Asking God to show you how He wants you to spend your time, how He wants you to spend your money, how He wants you to spend your energy and your focus and your effort. I just want you to write down a prayer asking Him to show you. Because like the Bible says again and again, if you ask, you will receive. If you seek Him, you will find Him. And I think God cares deeply about how you spend the things that He's given you. And if you ask Him for guidance, He will give it. Write down your prayer for God to show you how to spend your time, your money, and your energy. All right, I'm going to pray for us as we wrap up. God, thank you that you do care. Thank you that you care about every detail of our lives. You care about every hair on our head. You care about every job we have, every worry that we have, every goal we pursue, every relationship that we spend time with. You care about everything. And you certainly care about the practical, tactical aspects of our life, like our time, our money, and our energy. God, you care about how we use those things. And God, I pray that right now you would give us guidance, that you would give us discernment and direction, that you would show us where to put our effort, where to put our money, where to spend our time, how to create schedules that reflect the life that you want us to lead, not what everyone else tells us to lead, not doing what everyone else tells us to do, not giving where everyone else says their cause is the most important. God, would you show us where you would have us show up, where you would have us give? Would you show us how to be wise and generous stewards of our resources? God, we want to confess right now that everything that we have is yours. Every good thing has come from you. You own it. We are just stewards in this life. God, thank you that when we ask for help, we will find it. And God, I pray specifically for every person watching right now that this week you would show up in a powerful way and help them in this area, that they can experience you even in the practical things like a calendar or a budget. And God, whenever you do, I pray that they would recognize it and we could then say, to you be the glory. God, thank you that you help us. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks so much for joining me. And you can tune in next week where we are actually going to continue this conversation and we're going to do a deep dive on what God says about how we manage our time. And we're going to talk about practical, tactical steps that we can take to actually create a calendar and life that we love and we're proud of. I'll see you then.